Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Lambdas Who Rolls Live. I'm Ednan here with my good host Fernando. What's going on, brother? How you doing?
Good. So yourself? I had to set the mood a little bit.
Oh yeah,
The lighting. Yeah, I just wanted to have this like ambiance
ambiance.
going. Yeah, going on and stuff. So
That's what's up, man. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. Had a late night last night. Watching UFC 264.
Yeah,
Just post fight analysis and stuff like that. Trying to figure out who's next. I'm kind of weird like that. I'm like kind of a dork in such a way. Like trying to figure out playing matchmaker and stuff like that. But it was a good night, great card overall. It was really fun. Yeah.
yeah. I watched it too. I enjoyed it. There's a lot of finishes. One submission finish, which was
Yep.
like the very first fight. So I didn't get a chance to actually see that live, but I saw the replay, especially after you posted. Like, what the hell was that?
Yeah, I thought it was a breast choke. I thought it was, but everybody said guillotine. But
Yeah,
I defer to everybody.
I think I heard one of the commentators on the Spanish side when the Spanish commentator say it was like a ninja choke or something like that. It looked like a guillotine with just a figure four hold.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was pretty good. But the card overall was really good, man. Not for
Yeah.
nothing. That's what's up, man. How was your training? Been training this week? Did you get another chance?
Yeah, I trained. I think like once actually this week. Yeah, and it wasn't that great. No, well, yeah. So yeah, just one time. Not as much as what I mean by not great as means like as I didn't train as much as I wanted to train this week. Just a lot of things. I'm going on vacation for a couple
Trying to
weeks.
set up.
Yeah, so I'm trying to just finish things up at work and stuff like that. So it was hard to come out and stuff. Hopefully, I can get maybe one or two in before I go away. Hopefully, but we'll see. We'll see.
Are you gonna try to check out some gyms in Florida?
Yeah, I don't know.
Hard to get away, right?
Yeah, it's hard to get away. Like I'm with the wife and kids,
Yeah.
and then also to like an extended family and things like that. But then like it's weird because maybe this is a topic for another show. But like I guess I kind of feel awkward going to like other gyms that I don't
Yeah.
know, and things like that. So it's that's I guess something that maybe like a mental block that I need to get over. But that's something that I just not really like really keen on doing. Like I feel like I tend I'm not really the most social person, so like I tend to like thrive on like people I know are sticking with what I know. So it's kind of hard.
That's what's up. Yeah, yeah, definitely. But I didn't get too much training in. I think it's coming off the weekend, the 4th of July break. I think everybody kind of just slowed down. There's a few people here. They got a little bit of injuries they're trying to recover from, but did get like at least 2 times on the mat. Not as much as I was been doing in the past few weeks, but overall decent training. So, but enough of that. Let's get into the show. We have today a special guest with us, fellow hermano, martial artist, yoga teacher, health coach, Joseph Mata with us. Let's let him in. Joe, what's going on, brother? Para siempre.
Siempre.
Siempre, bros. How you guys doing?
I'm doing all right, man. Thank you so much for joining us today. I know that we're on a tight schedule, so we want to definitely jump into some questions. We start our show every single time we have a guest, having them tell us a little bit about themselves. So let us know about you and how'd you get into LUL, and then also how did you get started in yoga?
Awesome. So I'm born and raised in the Bronx. I went to Stony Brook University as an EOP student. Even when I went there as a senior for an EOP night over there to check out the school, I met some brothers over there. And actually the people who were guiding me were interested for LUL. Once I got to campus, I just connected with the bros there, to be honest. It wasn't even about the fraternity. They were just cool people. We had similar backgrounds, and we just connected. And I wanted to give myself a challenge, to be honest. I was doing martial arts before that, so I was into this challenge and pledging and seeing if I have what it takes. I knew I have what it takes, but I wanted to feel it and embody that instead of just have this philosophical idea of what I can do and actually make it happen and feel it in my body. So that's why I decided to pledge LU1 in the Spring 02. So
Spring '02. Spring '02. Hey, that's my brother's line. So you're my brother's LB.
yes,
Oh,
sir.
okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah, actually, you know how they say deal with it. Now guess who created that?
Oh, okay. Okay. That's what's up.
We
That's
used to
what's
say it
up.
at campuses, and then it just started going viral through LUL.
So we got history here for all you younger hermanos. That's where deal with it came from.
Deal
So.
with it.
Deal with
That's
it.
what's up.
Did some other things. What is it? The blood, sweat, it can't.
That's
Mhm.
what's up.
Keep them up. Yeah,
Yep.
Stony. Anyway,
Excellent, man. Nice. Yeah. So I probably did get to see you online then at some point with you being Diego's LB. So that's cool. That's cool. So long ago, man. I don't even remember a whole bunch of stuff, but that's awesome though. Glad to hear it.
I remember going over there and meeting your brother actually.
Okay, nice. Yeah, so he couldn't make it today. He actually was moving this weekend, but yeah, man, I'm glad to have you. So how did you said you did martial arts? I think you told me before that you were doing Wing Chun, right?
Yeah, at 16, I started Wing Chun with my brother. We were doing Wing Chun for many years. You know, still practice to this day, not as much, obviously, because I focus on the yoga practice. But that was what initiated me into this movement practice and developing situational awareness, as well as just building up my body and see what it can contain and what it could leave out.
Gotcha. So when it came to yoga, when did you get started? Like what year? And what was it about it that about your situation or your experience at that time in your life that said, you know what, I'm gonna get into yoga? And then at what point did you say, I'm gonna commit to this as my martial art?
Yeah, so I started yoga in 2012. Someone I was dating invited me to a yoga class. I took the yoga class. I fell in love with it immediately. Probably 2 weeks later, I just signed up to get certified in yoga. That's how amped I was.
Wow.
You know, what I loved about yoga is that beforehand, I had my physical practice, which was martial arts, Wing Chun, did some Jiu Jitsu, and then I had my meditative practice, and they were kind of separated, right? I did some Qigong, type of Tai Chi practices for my martial arts, but I always viewed as meditation as just a little separate, right? Because even the Qigong is for defending myself, right? It's not, even though we're cultivating ourselves, the goal is to protect ourselves and protect other people. As opposed to yoga, it combined movement and stillness, and the whole focus is on the internal reality. And dealing with that so the external reality can eventually mirror what's going on inside it. In fact, it already does, but we have to develop that awareness of it. So, you know, what's different from martial arts in general usually is that, you know, you develop a lot of situational awareness, right? You know what's going on in your environment and how to respond. And we train so we can have these behaviors become instinct when we're ready for battle, we're ready to engage on the mat. But rarely in martial arts, at least, you know, at the beginning stages, do you focus on the inner reality and trying to see those unconscious behaviors that you already have instilled with you, bring them to light and determine whether or not they're still serving you. So with martial arts, we're always trying to make conscious behavior into unconscious patterns for fighting. But rarely do I find that martial arts create time and space to bring to light those unconscious behaviors that we already have now. So that's what I really liked about the yoga, that was the focus. So then I just decided to get certified. I didn't think about being a teacher. I just thought it was like, hey, you know what? This is an investment on my journey, and this is what I want to do. And then people started asking me to teach yoga, so I started teaching yoga.
Well, that's great. I mean, you know, the funny thing is because like my wife, she practices like the hot yoga, and you know, she's tried to get me to go to a couple classes, and I guess like sometimes, so I guess I'm like kind of like a competitive person, and I've had multiple like injuries over the past like couple years or so. where it kind of like limits my mobility. And, you know, for example, you know, like I cannot sit on like the balls of my feet, on my heels, basically. I cannot sit down. And, you know, I guess part of it, you know, is like, I get frustrated, you know, when I try to like, because I see them doing the poses. I'm like, you know, why can't I do that? Or I try to like, try to push myself. So I haven't found it like enjoyable, you know, like, you know, like, so what would you say, like, for somebody like me who, you know, wants to get into it, because I think that there's a lot of health benefits to that, and it also can improve, you know, like my jiu-jitsu, but, you know, like, has those physical limitations. Like, how do you think that, you know, we should do, like, to overcome that? Do you think it's by going more to classes, or, you know,
I mean, we have to respect the condition our body is in. That's number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, you shouldn't see that as a limitation. It's just a different way of navigating, right? We all have different limitations, so we have to navigate our body accordingly. Yoga can definitely help out with ailments, but what yoga can really do is, you know, when people think about yoga, they usually think about stretching, you know. But if you want to stretch, go to a contortionist. You know what I'm saying? They're super flexible. Yoga is more about developing that somatic intelligence, and also developing that emotional intelligence. So much so that when you have those ailments, you already know what to do and what position or movement practice you need to bring more ease into the moment, and obviously into the next moment as well. So you have to look at it from that lens. You know, a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm not flexible, my back hurts, I can't do yoga." No, do the yoga. A side effect is going to be that you're going to get more flexible. But what's more important is that you get to understand the language of your body. Your body does not speak with words; it speaks to the sensations. But if you can distinguish pain from discomfort, or distinguish whether the pain you're feeling is the cause or a symptom, then you're always going to have problems. So the yoga practice gives you the opportunity to develop that vocabulary and have a protocol for yourself. Obviously, you go to yoga school, you have a teacher, you look for a teacher that you feel you can connect with, you know, their personality, but also their teaching practice. Some people teach yoga totally different from what I do, and it serves their tribe. So you actually, you know, you have to do your research and find what works for you. But of course, respect your body and realize that it's important for you to take time for you to learn about yourself. We always learn about the world. We always learn how to react to the world, especially like in fighting. But when do we get to learn about ourselves? So you have to look at it from that lens.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you mentioned something that is interesting right now, and I correlate that to jiu-jitsu and finding that right person. How do you find that right instructor? Because it sounds like you see yoga, you hear about yoga, and there's like tons of videos on YouTube if you really want to look it up. But how do you distinguish between what is right and what is probably not right for you at the moment, or even an instructor? Like, let's say if I'm looking for someone, what should I look for if I'm looking for a person that's really going to help me and not just, you know, like a McDonald's version of a yoga studio?
No, that's a great question. I mean, first of all, you need to know what your personal goals are. Is it more physical? Is it dealing with stress, dealing with anxiety? Know what your goals are before you enter the school. The best way is always to check out a person's class, and if they have content, read their content. Right? Some people are very physical. Some people are more on the spiritual. Some people more on the mental. So you have all those different percentages of what the yoga teacher could be combined. So the best way is always to have a conversation with them and let your body decide, right? Is if you take the class, how do you feel? Was it too much? You know, maybe you need to take a lower level yoga class. Lower level meaning is just you're not going so much to your end range, right? End range of ability, end range of threshold in terms of mental capability, right? So you have your goals, you have a conversation with teacher, pick their brain out. And if it makes sense to you, you try it out. And then you have the measurements that are coming from your body and see if you're feeling some type of improvement, you know? Like, how did you feel talking to them? How did you feel during the class? How did you feel after the class and the day after, right? Really take that time to really observe. And if you want to continue on that journey with that person. But it's good to check around. Check around. If you've never done yoga, just check different styles and see what works for you.
Nice. So when you started, how difficult was it to kind of reach, or how long? That's a better question. Is how long does it take for someone to start really feeling the benefits of it? Right. For example, if I'm in like a downward dog position, right, and my heels don't touch the mat, right, you can feel like that stretch on all the way from your Achilles all the way up to your calf. How long does it take? And I guess maybe everybody's different, but like for you, how long did it take for you once you got started to a point where it's like when you said, you know what, hey, this is I see the difference. How long did it take for you roughly?
From the internal aspect, in terms of mental clarity, I saw the results immediately. Obviously, flexibility can take time, right? Getting an extra inch of length can take months, right? Centimeters can take a year. And it really depends on your specific situation. So every body is different, but at the same time, it's how you're practicing. Are you playing your edge? Are you just doing static stretching? Are you doing active stretching? What type of stretching are you doing is really going to determine how fast your range of motion will increase and whether or not you could decrease the injury by being stronger in those end ranges. Because it's one thing to increase flexibility. The next stage is to master that new range you have, because we're always our weakest at our end ranges. In Jiu Jitsu, you find yourself in your end range all the time. When you're pulling someone into that end range, this is where we're weak. Here, we're stronger, but trying to hold them down here is much more difficult. So this is an example of an end range. So we have to develop those end ranges, which yoga can be a perfect place. And that's how it also actually connects to Jiu Jitsu in regards to that. But it really depends on the person. I can't give you like, oh, it takes 6 months. It's the type of stretching and what is your intention as you're doing the practice. From a purely physical point of view, if you're just talking about flexibility, then you have to be specific. You're going to have to use different types of flexibility depending on the specific goal.
Gotcha. And I guess it's like everything else, right? It's like even with jiu-jitsu, the more you do it, the better you're going to be, the faster you're going to move, right? So I'm assuming with yoga, the same thing, right? The more you're involved in it, the more you're invested in it, the faster you're going to benefit potentially from it, both internally and externally, right? What's the recommended how often should someone do it if someone's just getting started? What do you usually tell people who are just kind of for the first time trying it out?
I mean, I would say, just go on YouTube, try a 20-minute class and see how that feels, and then end up building your tolerance up to maybe an hour of class. And of course, there's different levels of yoga classes, but what you want to do is, hold on, I want to make sure I say this correctly. In terms of time, you have the time constraint. You have maybe 20 minutes. Maybe you could build that up to an hour. At the same time, you have to know what's your personal recovery time.
Okay.
I'm gonna give you an example. I don't want to just say just do yoga every day, because that's not the answer. Before I used to do yoga like 2 hours a day. Now I do yoga 45 minutes. And it's because I learned my body in such a way that I know certain movements will bleed into other movements. So if I use those specific movements, now I become more efficient. Therefore, I need less time to prepare my body or to maintain my body. Before, I used to just do a lot of moves. And, certain movements or certain practices only help that movement. But I need to figure out these universal movement patterns that work on multiple points on my body, therefore making my practice more efficient, and it actually takes less time. So that's the little thing that we have to understand. It's not to say, oh, do yoga every day for an hour. It's about every time you're doing it, you're developing or you're becoming more efficient with your movement. That makes sense.
Oh yeah, man, definitely, absolutely.
That's very interesting, Joe. And I just wanted to blend it because I noticed earlier you said that that you signed up to be like get certification. When did you realize because you said you didn't have like that goal of being a teacher, but when did you realize, hey, like maybe I want to extend this practice and start teaching others, in order to did it help you benefit? Did it benefit your practice as well? So just when did that, if you could elaborate more, like when did you decide?
Sure. So, at that time I was a math teacher, high school math teacher. I was practicing the Wing Chun. I was doing the yoga. And then I started bringing the yoga into my classroom because a lot of students suffer from math anxiety, right?
Interesting.
I was bringing mindfulness to the classroom, doing breathing techniques before tests, before engaging in certain activities, because there was these mental blocks that were stopping them, and nobody was teaching them or giving them protocols to bring their body back to a state of ease. And then that started making me think. I was like, these kids don't know it because no one's teaching them in school, and their parents don't know it as well. And in my borough, the Bronx, it has been for the last 9 years, since 2012, the least healthy county in all of NYC. For literally the last 9 years, it's going to be 10 years coming up. So I felt it was my duty to share this practice with others because, as I mentioned before, we always learn about the outer world, but we never learn about ourselves, how to navigate our emotions. How does our own mind works? How do I know that the story that I'm giving to the feelings that I'm sensing are real, right? Because our feelings are real, but the storylines I put on them may not be. How do I know that? How do I know that my thoughts are my own, right? I would ask my students that, right? Like, how do you know your thoughts are your own? A lot of people couldn't answer that. People don't do self-study, and I see that as a big problem. Everybody's like, hey, just follow your intuition. How are you going to follow your intuition if you don't know the language of your own body? You do no self-study. You have no proprioception. You have no interoception. Telling people just following intuition is not the best advice. You have to give them the tools, and then they can develop that intuition, because our sense of self can be skewed because of the priming of society, our parents, right? It happens all the time. And we don't know whether parts of our personality or physical behavior, because our postures and our movement practice are history lessons. And I think that's what a lot of people don't understand. Your range is telling you a story, but you may not be able to interpret that story. It could be of pain. It could be of a car accident. You have to really take time and study that. And I just wanted to show that to people, because this is a body-centered approach to healing. Other approaches to healing are all top-down. They start at the cognitive level. They talk about the past and the trauma, which works. But every change that you've ever experienced had one thing in common. And that change and that thing is embodiment. It has to be felt viscerally, right? And that's the key. You have a lot of people do these philosophical talks, and all that. You have to embodiment. Embodiment is the key, plain and simple. So when we have stress, when we're troubled, right? Maybe I could call my bro, Father Champion, help me out. Maybe I'll call a family member. But what happens when that resource, all these resources are external? What happens when that resource is not available for whatever reason? The only resources that I always will have with me is my breath and my body. If I can manipulate my nervous system consciously then it's going to bleed into the activities that are going on in my brain and change my mental and emotional state. And a lot of people just don't know how to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
People just say, yo, just keep going, man. Just keep grinding. Just keep hustling, which is good. But we have to learn how to be in those moments of hustling. And yoga is a somatic practice where movement is the learning language. And this is why I think it's really beneficial for people who do jiu-jitsu, right? Because when we're moving around, right, like I said, you're developing that situation awareness and that reaction time. But you need to really be able to or have a practice where you're paying attention to yourself and understanding what are your thresholds of whether it's pain, what are your thresholds of flexibility. Do you really know where your body is and how does that feel? And what are the situations they're telling you? How do you get out of your own way, right? Especially when things come up like fear. Oh my God, this person put me in a chokehold. I'm scared now. How do I change that? Because the emotional state changes what we can remember. If it changes the memory banks, then I may not be able to pull out that move that I learned last week because of my emotional state. So the emotional state is really key when it comes to fighting. Yoga can help us, give us the tools to renegotiate our nervous system to put ourselves in a state of ease that we have availability for all the things that we taught ourselves and use it in that moment. That was a long answer, but there you go.
Bro, my mind is like blown right now. Like, wow. And this goes to show how ignorant, at least I am, or we are, about yoga, because when you think of yoga, all you think about is stretching, right? Unfortunately, right? And to hear you talk about this from the level that you're bringing it makes so much sense. Like, wow, it's extremely deep, man. I never imagined, man. That's crazy. That's really crazy. And for me, I was talking about this, I think, last week on our show, where in doing a class on emotional intelligence, and identifying ways to improve your self-awareness, I would have never imagined yoga being a method to do so, right? You hear about, breathing, and you hear about just, taking a moment to just reflect, introspection and stuff. But to think that yoga could be the tool to make that actually happen, I'm mind blown right now, man. That's amazing.
Wow. Yeah, I'm actually gonna talk to my wife later and start giving it a shot, because I feel like, the way from the way your passion, it just jumps off at the screen and in that interview. Yeah. So it's something that like I always curious about. Have tried it a few times, but I definitely, I feel like I definitely took the wrong approach to it. I thought it was more like stretching and things like that. But like you being in tune with yourself, I think that's an excellent benefit. And I also wanted to segue. So you did say that you help the students deal with like that, I guess, that anxiety from that teacher aspect. Once you have them, did it improve like their performance when it came to that test anxiety? Like, did you see it from there?
Oh, 100%, 100%. They're when people will usually prepare for tests, what they do, they just study hard, right? It's all cognitive based. I'm studying, I'm gonna repeat this, I'm gonna practice prompts, but they never take time to put their body in the proper state, right? It could be getting good sleep, maybe working out before the test to get that blood circulating, right? Are we breathing properly so our body's oxygenated and it's not wasting energy to keep us our best selves, right? And that could be posture. If we have bad posture, it's harder for us to breathe. It's harder for us to breathe. We're taking more energy, and that energy can be used somewhere else, more for cognitive engagement or cognitive load, right? We have to think about that. How are we using our resources within our body? And a lot of students just didn't. They just weren't taught about that, right? So. It's a two-way street, right? It's a two-way street, right? Via the nervous system, whether our mind can change how we feel, or our movements or stillness can change how we feel or perceive perceive reality. And in regards to emotional intelligence, I mean, what's the first step of emotional intelligence? Develop that self-awareness, right? The goal of yoga is like, or look in life, right? We're born, we're aware, we're not self-aware. We become self-aware, and then we end up going into awareness or whatever you believe. But that's the key, right? We have to develop our self-awareness until we can drop the self and simply be aware. And that's what yoga really gives you the opportunity to create space between moments, space between actions and stimulus, right? You get to be the neutral observer of what you experience. And the example I always use is, let's say you're in a, someone's putting you in a headlock. And you feel the pain, and it obviously through time is getting worse and worse. You're about to knock out, but what happens? All your awareness goes to your neck. What happened to your hand? What happened to your feet? They somehow disappear, and that's what happens with stress. Stress steals attention, but with the yoga practice, we can reopen our periphery of awareness. And once we do that, now, okay, I'm getting choked in my neck, but I can feel my hands, my feet. I know what's in the room. I feel his body. Expanding the peripheral awareness is going to give us the opportunity and options to get out of that headlock. You could do that literally off the mat too. Someone's annoying the shit out of you, right? Sometimes you want to smack them, but there's so much more to the story. And yoga allows us to reopen or even widen that peripheral awareness. And once we're able to do that, that thing that's right there in the moment doesn't feel as personal anymore. This is not a headlock on me. This is just a headlock, right? Gotcha. What am I experiencing is not, what's happening is a shared experience from a first person perspective. And that allows us to not take it as personal. If you don't take it as personal, we're not so emotional about what's going on. And then we can act accordingly, whether it's making a move or just responding in a proactive way.
Wow. How much of that's from, I mean, everything you're saying is just blowing my mind. I'll just reiterate that. How much is the way you're approaching your life, yoga, or maybe using yoga to have this level of awareness of just perspective of how you see things? How much is it attributed to yoga itself, and how much is it just to your own person, right? And because when I think about it, it sounds like you're having an amazing experience, not just from a physical improvement perspective, but also from a mind-blowing mental development, right? But can everybody's experience be as beautiful as yours, right? Is it, and I guess it alludes back to the question is this come from a specific teacher, a specific style, a specific, maybe school of thoughts when it came to yoga, or was it your own self-discovery? I mean, you said you went to a yoga class. Was that yoga class like teaching this deep thinking, or was it you like, what, I just connected two and two together and now I've ascended to this level of thought? How can we basically achieve your level of enlightenment, man? That's what I'm trying to ask.
Thanks, bro. We're all equals. We come from the same place. We return to the same place. We're the same. I just connected different things together, right? The yoga philosophy, mathematics, and what's going on with like somatic therapy or developing emotional intelligence and somatic intelligence. So I'm really taking, Eastern traditions combining with Western science in regards to the nervous system, put that together. It really comes back to the mathematics. I studied and taught math, and it's all about pattern recognition, specifically of the outer world. But in the inner reality, for us we're mathematical processes, right? We're mathematical equations. So to understand the inner reality, we just have to learn how to see these patterns and manipulate these patterns. However, when it comes to the inner reality, we may not be using numbers. They're more of a qualitative value. So that's what kind of makes it a little more difficult. So it's the same thing. So I just really combine those things all together, and really understanding the philosophical, mystical aspect and how that relates to our actual body. Just to give you an example, you mentioned earlier about when you hear yoga, it's about stretching, it's about breathing. Obviously, stretching can change what state our nervous system is in. AKA, it could put us in a parasympathetic state, making us feel more relaxed. So that's an easy way of getting into a different emotional state, stretching. But also in, wait, I just lost my train of thought. Forgot. What was I saying?
You're talking about how flexibility or stretching could get you into a different emotional state. And we were talking about how your development, your experiences, where you combining mathematics.
I got it. You mentioned earlier about breathing. It's about to breathe. Breathing is an involuntary thing we do. It's part of our nervous system. The moment we make, and so just practicing breathing and breathing techniques, making something that's involuntary, that's hidden in plain sight. When we're not thinking about breathing, we don't feel it, we don't sense it, it's there, but yet it's affecting how we perceive reality, and it is affecting how we feel. And then we bring that into attention, and now we realize that it's a powerful tool. But doing that, practicing, being aware of something that's involuntary, voluntarily manipulate that allows us, is the first step in becoming more sensitive to our nervous system and other parts of our body. So the breathing techniques is actually a training mechanism to become more sensitive of the surrounding organs and groups and that viscera inside. So you really get to develop that interoception. What is my body telling me? I may not feel hungry, but my body's telling me to eat. I may not feel tired, but I know I need to slow down. You know what? Maybe today my body's telling me not to play my edge, right? The good thing about the breathing technique and about the yoga or movement practices in general is that it can be used as a diagnostic and it can be used as an intervention, right? It can be used to say, what is my current state and what do I need to do? And then it can be used to bring myself back into a state of ease or into a flow state. So you can use it those two ways.
Man, this is deep, man. Let's take a quick 20-second break, and then we'll come back, continue our conversation with Joe. All right, we're back with Joe, and it's crazy. I know you're on time limit, and
I got some time. I still got some time. Let's go.
Okay, cool. We haven't even gotten to like the jiu-jitsu part of it, right? Man, we've just been talking about this. Honestly, like this Zen level thinking. I'm like, man, this is way more than I imagined. My brain's trying to process all this. This is like super, super amazing.
I'm like conscious about my posture right now. I'm like trying.
I'm trying to sit up and like, man, my leg is cramping up. I'm like, oh, But man, so now let's talk a little bit about the jiu-jitsu side of things, right? You tried jiu-jitsu out, so you know a little bit about what it takes, the type of movements. You mentioned even in the first part of the segment of putting yourself in a headlock and being able to relax and putting attention to that particular feeling that you're experiencing at the moment. Now, and you've worked with some jiu-jitsu practitioners, right? What is the most common, I guess, I don't want to say deficiency, but what is the most common, thing that you find from the jiu-jitsu practitioner that where yoga could potentially benefit them? Like, what is it where can we find that benefit as a jiu-jitsu player?
From a physical perspective, it's definitely mobility, right? A lot of times you have jiu-jitsu artists that they know how to do certain moves, but how can they connect it seamlessly, right? How can we? What's the most efficient way in terms of energy, in terms of time, in terms of movement to go from one position to the next, right? Because that's what's going to give us more. Uh, what's the word? More endurance, right? The more efficient we are, we become more endurance. Obviously, more endurance. But obviously, if we're more flexible, the easier it is to get in and out of moves. The more flexible you are, and the stronger you're in that end range of motion, right? You can't just be more flexible. You got to be stronger in that end range of motion. The longer it's going to take someone to put yourself in a lock. If you're trying to put me in a triangle and I'm super flexible, it's going to take you that much longer for me to feel pain. That extra time gives me more opportunity to get out of it, plain and simple. So you can think of flexibility or more mobility in terms of having more options when someone's trying to put you in some type of crank, connecting the moves together, and at the same time being in a state of ease. I have to go back to that state of ease because the state of ease will build up your endurance. You have to stay calm. How how's your nervous system responding to threat? Are you freezing? Are you about to pass out? You want to be real in control of how you're responding to surprises. Yoga does that. The cool thing about jiu-jitsu is that it always keeps you in the present moment, right? Someone's trying to take you out. So you're always in the present moment, but it's more about what are you aware of as we're constantly moving around, and can you be calm during that the whole time?
Yeah, I see that mind state too. In fighting in general, like in like you see in mixed martial arts, where a guy's like overly hyped, overly amped, and then like after like they have that adrenaline dump, then they have nothing left, and then like when they're not able to process or have that that Zen like approach to the game, and then that's when bad things happen. So yeah, definitely they see the benefit. Also too, with the flexibility, I think it helps with guard retention as well, because like if somebody's super flexible, it's like really hard, especially for me. I don't know, Hernan, you're a black belt, so you might have like more success, but like somebody, one of your students actually, I think he does a Budokan at the movement lab. It was like really hard to get around like his guard. I mean, he was like doing like rolls and stuff like that. So like, yeah, I definitely see, and I asked him afterwards, and he said that he does, like the Budokan, like yoga and things like that. So, I definitely see those benefits as well in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, I also want to add in, it's like, well, what happens when someone's on your back and you can't see them, right? When you practice yoga, part of the practice, at least part of the yoga that I do, is that your sense of self has to go beyond the perimeter of your body, right? I know I'm different from this computer because it's outside the perimeter of my body. But in terms of fighting, in terms of yoga, you want to expand your sense of self to whatever in your local environment as well. And that's what's going to help you feel the person's intention of what they're trying to do. Because our main senses are the sight and the sound, right? But now we don't have the sight. So in yoga, you could actually, parts of the practice is actually doing it with your eyes closed. Can we take out a measurement, or in this case, a sense, a dimension, and that's going to build up the other senses as well. Part of that is expanding your sense of self through a meditative and movement practice, which is going to actually make it easier to deal with someone that you can't see, but you can only feel. But the question is, how much can you feel? Do you only feel where he's putting the stress, or can you feel where he's being passive? When you're in the move, are you aware of the parts of your body that are tense? And if they're intense, are they efficient? Are you aware of the parts of the body that are in ease or passive in nature? Is it too passive for that moment? So you really get to feel that and act appropriately in that moment so you can have perfect form or a great technique. A lot of people are like, oh shit, I got to respond, and they just move. But we have to have all the pieces together, and the self-awareness is the key, the interoception.
Wow, that's interesting. And I know, Fernando, I definitely agree that the jiu-jitsu practitioner that has a very solid foundation in movement, in awareness, they are much more fluid, regardless of, even if they don't have specific technique that, for jiu-jitsu, but the fact that they are aware of their space, they move so much more fluid, and it's much more difficult to catch them, right? It's just amazing. They could just easily move from one angle to another efficiently, right? Not just like, a spaz movement, right? It's just an efficient movement. And I think, and when I see that, and I have, as you mentioned, I have students who are really focusing on yoga but starting jiu-jitsu, they're trouble, man. It's trouble. And it's amazing to see. And that's why, for me, I'm so interested in wanting. I've been wanting to start yoga for such a long time, and I did it for a little bit through Budokan. But one of my, and maybe this is just my own mindset, but I guess I was caught up in the P90X yoga series, right? Which is like 2 hours long. You know what I'm talking about, right? Joe's laughing over there, but he knows exactly what I'm talking about. And you're like, do I have 2 hours of the day to be able to improve? And so that's why one of the questions for me was like, how long should I really focus on? And I really appreciate the fact that, it's understanding your own body and working towards those improvements based on whatever limitations you have at that moment. And eventually it might be 30 minutes and then an hour, maybe you bring it back to a half hour once you're better aware of what benefits you the most. But it's so scary because you think about it and you're like, man, 2 hours of specific yoga movements, man, who has the time, right? Who has the time? But it's true, 100%. I think that people who have jiu-jitsu practitioners who have added yoga into their overall practice, into their overall lifestyle, see improvements in their jiu-jitsu. And take a look at Saulo or Lovato, Rafael Lovato. You see him now training in mobility, right? And all you see now is videos of them doing. Same thing with Gymnastica with Jackson Souza. It's all about, it's a different name. For me, it's a different name, but it still has the same essence, the same origin. It's all movement, right? And I can see it there, man. It's amazing, man.
The regular person doesn't have 2 hours to practice yoga, but you could practice the mindfulness part of it, right? The yoga postures just give us an environment to develop that mindfulness, right? Because it puts us in a place, depending on what level you're at, it puts us in a place that we could do something physically that's there, but it's not so engaging to the point that my mind can veer off and do something else, right? Kind of like driving a car, right? Once we get comfortable with a car, our mind could go somewhere else. But our goal is to keep our mind where our body is. You could practice that all the time, simply by being aware of your breath all the day. Try to go to work and be aware of your breath all the day. And that alone is going to develop that interoception that you would get from a yoga practice. So it may not be doing these postures, right? So you're not going to get the flexibility part of it, right? You may not get the mobility part of it because you just don't have that time, but you could get the interoception part by being aware of your body as you engage in your environment and trying to be that neutral observer, right? And, so you can see why you responded in such a way, because a lot of times you think you're consciously there when in fact you're on autopilot. The example I always use when I was a kid, I used to look on top of the TV, wake up in the morning, look at the cable box, determine whether or not it was time for me to get up and go to school. Wake up, it's time to go, or it's not time, I go back to sleep. Guess what? There was a time I didn't have cable no more cable box, but I kept waking up and looking over the TV. And it hit me, I said, oh my God, something I thought all this time I was choosing to look over the TV. In the beginning, I was. It was a conscious decision. Over time, it became an unconscious pattern. Now I'm waking up, looking over the TV when there's no cable box, and I consciously know there's no cable box. How many things do I think I'm doing? I'm choosing, but in fact, I chose a long time ago, and it's no longer serving me because right now it's wasting my fucking time. Right? There's a lot of patterns that are like that are instilled in our body that we think it's us, but it's actually our past selves still living because our past lives in our body. That's why, that's what I was alluding to, the fact that our postures, our ranges of motion are history lessons, right? What shape do you create when you're happy? What shape do you fall into when you're stressed? These are all clues that your nervous system or your body's telling you in order for you to renegotiate your nervous system so it could be in a state of ease or be in a state of flow when you're doing jiu-jitsu.
Wow. I'm like, man, that is, as a emotional intelligence instructor, this is just amazing just to hear the correlation, bro. It's I have material to bring to my students now, man. It's like, and we're gonna try some yoga in a class. It's amazing, man. I appreciate this, man.
Hernan, you looking like that mind blowing energy right now, bro.
Yeah. I feel like I'm gonna be a GIF, just all of a sudden, like, stuff coming out of my mind, man. It's just amazing to think about it, and just just your posture, and I'm thinking about it. Fernando's like, I'm trying to fix my posture, and I'm like, man, why do I hunch back over like this? And you're right. All what we do, or a lot of things that we do, is just us on autopilot, right? It's just a story that we told ourselves now that we've convinced ourselves of that narrative, and that's who is defining us. But it's really, that's not necessarily what it means. I'm just mind blown. I mean, we were supposed to talk about yoga and how it benefits jiu-jitsu. We've just talked about how yoga can benefit life, right? And that is like another level, man. It's another level. So if anybody's watching this and was expecting to learn how to improve their guard, bro, forget that, man. Improve your guard of life, bro. Like, it's just another level, man. Man, Joseph, this is amazing, bro. Honestly, I would love to link you up with the people at the Movement Lab. We have, I'm not sure if you heard of it, but there's a pretty popular yoga studio in Baltimore. And it's not just about yoga. It's all about movement. They have a whole bunch of their programs. I would love to link you up with a good friend of mine. His name is Jamal. He's the operations manager there, and the owner, Caroline. If you could come down and give us do a seminar with us, I'm gonna set that up, and I'm gonna be there, with my notebook, taking notes, man. And you can see it right now in that private chat. I'm like just writing some of the things he said. Amazing. I'm really amazing, and I appreciate that, man. But we're reaching the top of the hour, and during this segment, we usually hand it over to our guests to let us know, to give us some final words, let us know where they can find you, and just basically shout out anybody. So the floor is yours, Joseph. Let us know, how we can reach you, and we can benefit more from what you got to say and learn.
The best place to reach me, you can find me on IG with my name, Mathematics. My name is Joseph Mata, but you can find me on IG on Mathematics. You probably find me on Facebook. I'm really more on Instagram, and you can DM me there, or you can email me at jmata@mtheory101.com. Whatever works for you, just slide in the DMs. You have a question, you just let me know, right? We're just here to find our tribe, or a tribe finds us.
Are you doing mostly, you said you were doing mostly like one-on-one sessions now, right?
Mostly one-on-one sessions. I don't have any public classes. I'm thinking, probably maybe working with you to do like a public class. A lot of people have been asking me, but I rarely do public classes now. I like one-on-one so we could develop them as much as we can.
I'm
Maybe
thinking
next Lambdas Who Roll open mat.
that's it. Would you be open to coming out to an open mat that we have and separating a portion of it solely for solely for learning more of what your perspective on yoga,
Yeah, for sure.
and then we'll get you on the mat and roll with you too.
And then you tap me out.
Yeah. we're gonna get you back.
Reality.
We're gonna get you back for training.
Did Joseph pass out, or he's in Zen right now? Like, I'm not sure what it is.
Yeah, he's in full awareness of where he's at right now. But I'm gonna try to get you back on the mats too, man. So I think an LUL open mat would be a great place, so that you're in a in a room full of hermanos, all different levels, from the beginner all the way to the black belt. But we would love to have maybe set something up kind of like more a seminar style, and a segment of that be focused primarily on the benefits of yoga, and maybe even learning some type of movements and stretches that could help us kind of get some of the get introduced to it. I'd love that. If you're open for that, man, we could set that up.
Let's do it.
That's what's up, man. Thank you so much. So Joseph, man, I appreciate your time, man. I know you said you had to go. I'm not sure if you oh, I was gonna ask you one last thing. You're doing one-on-ones. Are you doing them virtually, and are you leaving New York? Like, let's say if you want to do one-on-ones with someone in Jersey or someone in Maryland, are you moving around?
I primarily do it in the city in New York. I usually don't just stay unless it's a very special occasion, and I do some virtually, but mostly it's face to face.
Face to face, gotcha.
Do virtual if necessary.
That's what's up. But I'm definitely gonna follow up with you. We're hoping to have maybe an open mat set up for later in the year. I'd love to have you. You're not too far away from Hackensack. But and there's some bros that do come from New York, and it'd be awesome to have you with us, in person. So, all right. With that said, thank you so much, Joe, and we'll catch up with you on another episode.
Para siempre.
Para siempre, brother. Peace out.
Peace.
Fernando, man, what you think, bro?
Wow. It's crazy. So with Joseph, like the last time I seen and spoke to him, it was like a back in spring 2003, and it was like a different dynamic, right. in those conversations, more as like an hermano / caballero in my case. And so I never really got to like talk to him. This is like the first time I really talked, and I mean, wow, just the intellectual gems that he just dropped on us, it might have like changed my life, my whole thinking, as far as into yoga. Like I used to always joke with my wife. She's like, "Oh, come," and I'll be like, "Nah, I'm gonna stay my ass home." Things like that. The namaste, playing off of that. Yeah. So I used to play off that, but I always knew there was a benefit, but like I said, the mindset was missing. I didn't think about it. I just thought of stretching and all that other things. That's I guess the exterior, and not focus on the benefits that can happen.
Yeah.
And emotionally, intellectually, and things like that. So shout out to Joseph. Like this was a really great conversation. And I really enjoyed this hour of speaking with him.
Yeah, me too, man. And as a person who's done yoga and not just like tried it, here and there. I mean, I was doing it specifically. Of course, it's I guess a different approach with the Budokan because you're mixing it up with traditional martial arts and Jiu Jitsu, but you're still a significant component of it is yogic movement, right? You hear about it. You hear about that internal development, the emotional development, but you never. But talking to Joseph, it was just another level, right? It's like you've reached it, right? It's kind of like you trying to teach you Jedi mind tricks, and you're like, yeah, but now you reach, you see an actual Jedi, and you're like, oh wow, you've actually achieved that, like it's not just talk, right? It's not just the person trying to tell you this, and that it's to hear his passion for it and his level of and his ability to put things together in that sense. For me, it's like, wow, that is amazing, and it's kind of it's reigniting that fire. Like, you know what? Now I'm looking at it from a different lens. Now it's not just like you said. I'm not just looking at it from, well, how can I improve my range of motion and my flexibility? Now I'm more curious about, like, how can I improve myself as a person?
Yep,
right?
exactly.
How can I improve my own state of awareness when I am in a bad position to increase my ability to control my own emotional state so that I can focus on the escape, right? Focus on, finishing a submission, right? And increasing my level of patience and just point of view. That, I think, that was the biggest gem for me today.
Yep. Yeah, and it's thing. Like it's a famous scene. I don't know if you've seen it. I haven't, but I know the scene where Harry met Sally. Where she's like in that restaurant. And the lady next to them. I guess she tells the waiter, "I'll have what she's having." Like just to see. Like I like just hearing him. That mindset. Like he. I feel like he's like in an amazing state mentally. I want that. Say I want that for my. Myself, so I definitely,
it's crazy. So there's, and I talked about this with some of my students previously. There's a study that that was done a few years ago, and there's actually a TED Talk about it. It's her name is Dr. Tasha Urich, I believe her name is. She's a psychologist, and her focus is on emotional intelligence. And she said she did a study where she found that most people believe they're self-aware, but they're not self-aware. And she said that only about 10 to 15% of her research population is actually self-aware. To hear what his perspective, or just the way he was, expressing himself, it really shows how much time he's put into the thought. And you can tell, like, there is this is self-awareness, right? You've transcended just like, I feel good today, but do you really feel good? Mm-hmm. Or is it just like my thought yesterday, and the sun is out, I look at the sun and, okay, today's going to be a good day, I feel good. But in reality, have you really looked into yourself and said, why is it that I feel this way, etc.? I mean, that's amazing. But
yeah, it's like I question myself now. I'm like, Dad, do I really know myself? Like, who am I? Like that type of thing.
And I think that for us to come out with that today is probably the biggest takeaway from this, right? It's mm-hmm. looking at. I'm sure now when you're going to go to the yoga class, you're going to couple that with the mental yoga, right? And I think that's amazing, man. So, but we're at the top of the hour. Fernando, last words, anything?
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to Joseph for those intellectual gems that he dropped on us today. If you guys had a chance to check out the episode, like, share, subscribe, let your friends know. I mean, this was a very, very, very good episode that I genuinely enjoyed. I also like to, give a shout out to, my family, everybody's family. Hope everybody makes it, is safe out there, doing, enjoying themselves and having a great summer.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Shout out to Joseph for sure. This is the first time we had someone that is not fully focusing on jiu-jitsu, right? Mm-hmm. And to hear their perspective and how we can leverage his knowledge into making us better jiu-jitsu practitioners was definitely the goal, and I think we achieved that.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely.
And so everybody, like Fernando said, like, share, subscribe, check the video out. I'm sure you're going to benefit from this particular episode. I'm mind blown. So with that said, we're going to sign off. Thank you so much again, guys, for another successful episode. We'll see each other again next Sunday. So till then, para siempre.